That winter came earlier than usual. Thick snow fell, each fluffy, soft snowflake drifting slowly onto the empty streets. The city looked as if covered by a giant layer of cotton, streetlights reflecting off each snowflake, creating tiny shadows dancing in the air. I sat in the car, hands on the steering wheel, listening to the tires crunching over the thick snow, the bone-chilling cold seeping from the glass down to my spine. I was in my final year of university, and the winter break had just begun. I had few plans, not going home, not meeting friends. Rent, tuition, and all sorts of petty expenses meant I needed a temporary, flexible job. Uber Eats became the perfect choice. No interview, no long-term contract, just open the app, accept orders, and go. Days like this, snowy nights, were usually the busiest. I knew this because most people chose to stay home. Hot food, warm drinks, who wouldn't want to pick up the phone and order? I had been driving nonstop all evening, watching the lights of restaurants through the windows, delivery vans slowly making their way through the snow. I had the radio on in the car, but static mixed with the music, creating a feeling both familiar and strange, making the cabin feel warm yet lonely. My hands remained on the steering wheel, eyes on the slippery road, occasionally pressing the brakes lightly to prevent sliding. The outside world was eerily silent, only the wind whistling through leafless trees, the crunch of snow under the tires, and the faint sound of the radio in the car. My breathing was steady, but I could feel each cold gust creeping into my wrists, my neck, as if reminding me that I was outside, in the midst of a lonely winter night. I had never been afraid of the dark or snow, but something about that night felt different. Maybe it was the extreme stillness, the absence of other cars, or simply the exhaustion from a day of studying and driving. Either way, I knew this would be one of the tougher delivery shifts. I remember standing outside shops a few times that night, picking up my phone to accept orders, checking the map, calculating the route. At that moment, I received a new order. A late-night delivery, quite far, but with a generous tip. Looking at the map, I realized this area was a wealthy suburb. Large houses, wide gaps between them, streets leading into secluded areas with almost no streetlights. I took a deep breath, feeling the cold wind slip through the car window, then drove away from the city center. The further I went, the more the tall buildings disappeared, replaced by long fences, massive iron gates, and wide snowy lots. The car slid slightly on the slippery road, and I had to keep my speed lower than usual, both for safety and to avoid loud noises breaking my focus. In that moment of solitude, I began noticing every detail around me. The blinking lights from windows hundreds of meters away, the trees standing still like cold soldiers guarding the neighborhood, and the whistling wind shaking the bare branches lightly. Everything was silent, too silent, making me shiver slightly. I thought about why I chose this job. Simple, easy, flexible. No interviews, no long contracts. Just drive, deliver, earn a little money during the break. But while driving through this quiet suburban area, I realized that loneliness and cold sometimes made things far scarier than imagined. Those thoughts passed quickly as I checked the clock. Nearly 11 p.m., and the snow continued to fall thickly, covering the entire road ahead. I pressed the accelerator a little more, trying to keep my breathing steady, and braced myself for a delivery shift that seemed more unusual than any night before. I looked at the map on my phone, confirming the address once more. Crestwood Street, a wealthy area but so deserted that I had to squint to read the numbers. The customer's house was about a 20-minute drive away, but on a snowy night like this, that could easily double. I sighed, lifted my hands toward the heater, trying to warm my numb wrists. Driving through narrow roads lined with wide plots of land and tall fences, I began to realize I had never gone this deep into the neighborhood before. I had only passed by in the past, seeing the towering rooftops from afar. But now, as the car slid across the thick snow, the surroundings felt different. Each large house, each massive iron gate, stood silent, no sign of life, no light shining anywhere. Only white snow stretching endlessly and bare tree shadows swaying in the wind. I told myself, just one more delivery, then home. Tomorrow, do it again. But exhaustion from a full day of studying and driving through the snow made my limbs feel heavy as lead. My vision began to blur. Every time I looked at a streetlight or small map marker, I had to squint several times to focus. Still, the tempting tip kept me determined to continue driving. Tonight, I had already received a few big orders, but this was the last one I planned to take. I knew skipping it would mean losing quite a bit of money, and for me, every dollar mattered. As I entered the neighborhood, the sense of loneliness and stillness grew stronger. No cars passed by in the opposite direction, no dogs barking, no restaurant lights, no sound from the radio except the faint hiss of falling snow. Only the crunching of my tires on the thick snow and the wind slipping through the car windows. I could feel the cold seeping into the cabin, creeping into my mind, making me shiver. My phone buzzed, signaling the destination was near. Looking at the screen, I saw that the road leading to the house was a long stretch flanked only by trees and snow. No visible house number, no light shining from any window. It felt as if I was driving into a completely separate world, one where everything normal had been left behind. I tried to steady my breathing, telling myself I was imagining things. Yet even as I did, a strange unease began to take root inside me. Each time the tires slipped slightly on the snow, my heart skipped a beat. I kept whispering, "Just drive slow, it's fine." But deep down, I felt I was moving towards something. Not normal. As I approached the house, I noticed something odd. The driveway was covered completely in snow, with no footprints or tire marks at all. I had to pull the car to the side of the road, grab the delivery bag, and prepare to walk to the door. The car's headlights cast light over the falling snow, creating long, dancing shadows across the ground. Each step I took made the snow beneath my boots, the only sound apart from the wind. I saw the house up close for the first time. A large, old mansion, grand but aged, the kind you'd see in horror films. Not a single light was on. Every window was pitch black. A piece of paper taped to the front door caught my eye. At first, I thought it was some notice about services or a message from the owner. But as I looked closer, the bold red letters spelling "Notice" across the top made me shiver. My hand tightened around the delivery bag as I stepped onto the snow-covered porch. Each step made a crunching sound that echoed through the silence, as if reminding me of the absolute solitude of this place. A cold gust blew past, making me hunch my shoulders, not just for warmth, but to focus. In that moment, I began to feel something was off. The air felt heavier, the silence so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. I told myself, it's just your imagination. But the unease lingered, like something unseen was watching me, waiting for me to take one more step. I looked down, checked the delivery bag again. The mix of fatigue, loneliness, and overwhelming quiet made me realize this was no ordinary delivery. The snowy night, the wealthy but empty neighborhood, the dark house, all of it formed a barrier, isolating me from the outside world. Still, I kept walking. I couldn't abandon the order, but with each step, the anxiety inside me grew stronger. Every crunch of snow underfoot, every gust of wind against the roof made my heart beat faster. I realized I was getting closer to something unknown, but very real, something only instinct, not reason, could sense. And in that moment, as I was about to reach the door, I told myself, just drop it off, get back to the car, and it'll all be over. But deep inside, I knew this night would be anything but ordinary. I stopped the car by the side of the road, where the driveway of the house was completely buried under snow. My hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel as I looked around, seeing only endless white, bare trees swaying in the wind, and the faint yellow glow of a distant streetlight. No other cars, no lights from nearby houses, only the sound of wind whistling, tires crunching snow, and a heavy blanket of solitude. Taking the delivery bag, I opened the car door. A blast of cold air rushed into the cabin, making me hunch my shoulders and grip the bag tightly. My footsteps pressed into the thick snow, each one producing a crunching sound that echoed through the still air. It felt like walking on a layer of cold cotton, soft yet oppressively heavy, pressing down with every step. Each footfall on the porch stairs gave off a sharp, eerie crunch that seemed to reverberate through the dark house, reflected back from the pitch-black windows as if the whole place were watching me. The house before me was massive, built in a classical style, with arches and large pillars. The pale painted walls had faded and were now blanketed in snow. No light shone from any window, no sign of life. I looked closer and saw thick curtains drawn shut, but they did little to stop the feeling of being watched from within. Every detail of the house felt out of place, as if something from the past still lingered here. silent, waiting. On the front door, a crookedly taped sheet of paper caught my eye, the word notice in bright red against the white background, making me flinch. I stepped closer, my breath trapped behind my scarf, forming a faint mist in the air. The letters were clear, but there was something unsettling about the way the paper was fixed to the door, not because of what it said, but because of how it stood there, alone in the darkness and stillness of the night. The wind picked up, making the paper rustle with a dry, whispering sound that froze me in place for a few seconds. I scanned the surroundings carefully. The front yard stretched wide, covered in untouched snow except for my own footprints. On both sides of the driveway, large trees stood bare, their branches trembling in the wind. The silence was so complete, I could hear the wind whistling through the cracks in the pillars, the faint fall of snow, and even the sounds of my own body, my heartbeat pounding, my breath steady yet uneven. A sense of isolation wrapped around me. I kept telling myself this was just a normal delivery, that everything was in my head after a long night working alone in the cold. But the more I looked, the more the silence pressed in. The total absence of life or motion made my skin crawl. Each step up the porch felt like trespassing into another world, where every sound was magnified and every shadow seemed to stretch farther. I tried peering through a window, but the glass was fogged and coated in frost. I couldn't see inside, yet I still felt eyes watching me from within. My heartbeat quickened, each thud echoing with the crunch of snow beneath my boots. I paused for a moment, listening. Only wind and snow, but the air felt thick, full of things unseen but somehow present. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself forward. Holding the bag, I stepped closer to the door, glancing again at the notice. The first line in bold read, "Notice, issued by the county," making me pause. I tilted my head, trying to read the rest, but the wind whipped the paper, making it flicker too fast to catch. I didn't think much of it, told myself I just needed to drop off the food and leave. But that's when I realized something strange. There were no other sounds anywhere. No noises from other houses, no cars passing by, not even a dog barking. Only snow, wind, and me. The silence was so deep I could hear my own heartbeat thudding in my chest, echoing into the empty air. The isolation became almost physical. I lowered my eyes to the ground, watching my footprints stretch across the snow, long, white, vanishing instantly into the vast empty yard. It felt like each step I took pulled me deeper into the night, deeper into loneliness. Part of me wanted to turn back to the car, to stop right there, but another voice urged me on. Just finish the delivery. Go back. Everything will be fine. But instinct began to rise inside me. I realized I was stepping into a space where normal rules no longer applied. Every detail, the notice, the dark windows, the snow-covered yard, combined into something hard to name, something eerie and wrong. Deep down, I knew something unseen was waiting ahead. I hunched my shoulders, gripping the delivery bag tighter, ready to take the last step. The air around me was still, but inside my heartbeat was racing, waves of cold spreading from my wrists to my toes. I took a slow breath, trying to stay calm. Everything felt poised to break at any second, yet I couldn't stop. Partly because of duty, partly because of instinct, I had to keep moving. My eyes flicked across the yard, memorizing every detail, each bush, each old lamppost, each snow-covered step. Nothing could be ignored, because some instinct told me that anything, even the smallest thing, might matter in the next few seconds. I stepped onto the final stair, my hand brushing the door handle. The chill of the metal shot through me, sinking deep into my bones, making me shiver. And just as I was about to press the doorbell, I heard it. A faint sound, like footsteps, sneaking from the direction of the garage. My heartbeat spiked, my throat went dry. I looked around, but all I saw was snow, bare trees, and the dark, silent house. Nothing moved, but my instincts screamed. Someone's here. A cold, indescribable sensation spread through my body. I knew I had just crossed into something not normal. Not just a late-night delivery in the snow, but a place cut off from the world, where ordinary rules no longer applied, and something strange was watching me. I stood there, my hand still gripping the delivery bag, my eyes fixed on the door handle. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to take a deep breath, trying to stay calm. The wind kept blowing cold, slicing through my scarf, whistling in my ears, creating a chilling sound. Everything around was so quiet that my heartbeat echoed like a drum in the winter night. Then I heard footsteps, soft, unhurried, but distinct enough to know they weren't the sound of my own boots on the snow. The sound came from the direction of the garage, the same spot I had glanced at just minutes ago, thinking it was only an empty stretch of snow. I squinted, trying to see through the heavy snowfall, but the darkness swallowed everything. I felt a presence. Part of me whispered, "It's just your imagination." But my survival instinct screamed, "No, someone's there." I stepped back, telling myself to keep some distance, but my legs froze in place, refusing to move. Then he appeared. A man stepped out from the direction of the garage, as if emerging from the shadows themselves. Instantly, I could tell something was off about him. His hair was cut short, buzzed close to the scalp, but filthy, with patches of snow clinging to his torn, weathered jacket. The light from my car's headlights reflected off his face, revealing tired, bent, cold eyes that seemed to pierce straight through me. I wanted to say, "Hello, I'm here with your order," but my mouth was dry, and the words stuck in my throat. He didn't answer, didn't say a word. He just started walking slowly toward me, directly and deliberately. Each of his steps crunched heavily in the snow, echoing through the stillness, as if the entire house was holding its breath. My breathing grew shallow. I stared at him, trying to guess what he was going to do. My grip on the delivery bag tightened, my palms damp with sweat. Part of me wanted to run, but another part knew that if I tried, I might slip on the thick snow, and that could be worse. I took a slow step toward him and held out the bag. "This is your order," I said, my voice trembling, trying to sound steady. He just stood there, motionless, unblinking. His hand reached out slightly, but he didn't take the bag. I noticed something strange. He didn't move toward the house, didn't step closer up the walkway, just stood still in the middle of the driveway. The air around us felt thick, heavy, like time itself was slowing down. A chill crept down my spine, but it wasn't from the snow. It came from him. There was something in his eyes, in the way he stood, that told me this wasn't a normal person. Not just a stranger, but something else. Something my instincts warned me not to touch. I said, my voice shaking, "Thank you, have a good night," and started to move aside to approach the door. But he didn't move. His eyes never left mine, his stillness pressing down on me like a weight. Time stretched. Each second passed like an eternity, and I realized the strangeness wasn't just in his stillness. It was in the way he watched me, the way he breathed, the way he made me feel completely seen, yet for reasons I couldn't understand. Every instinct screamed, "Run, right now!" But before I could react, he tilted his head slightly, eyes locked on mine, and in a low, rasping voice, almost a whisper, but enough to chill my skin, he said, "Follow me." My heart nearly stopped. The words came out clearly, but there was something wrong about them, like they didn't come from him at all, but from the air itself. The snow kept falling, the wind still howled, but everything else had gone silent. I stumbled back a few steps, my foot slipping on the snow, one hand grabbing the railing to steady myself. Pure survival instinct took over. I turned and ran toward my car, the delivery bag still in my hand. Each step crunched and slid on the snow as my heart hammered in my chest. I heard nothing else, no other footsteps, but I didn't dare look back. Every stride was a battle between reason and instinct. Reason said to stop, but instinct screamed to run, to survive. I finally reached my car, yanked the door open, jumped inside, and slammed it shut. The lock clicked. I threw the car into reverse and hit the gas. My breathing was harsh, my collar damp with sweat despite the cold. I glanced into the rearview mirror. He was still there, standing in the middle of the driveway, silent, motionless, watching me. No words, no movement, just a presence, cold and unyielding, as if he had been waiting for me all along. I drove off, heart pounding, hands shaking on the wheel. The feeling didn't fade, even after I'd gone several blocks away. I called the police as soon as I left the area, but when I gave them the address and described the house, they told me no one lived there. It had been abandoned for years. No one knew who the man was or what he wanted. That night still haunts me every time I think about it. The dark house, the red notice, and the man standing in the snow watching me. Even now, whenever I deliver to a dark, quiet house, I always remind myself, make sure there's light, make sure there's life, and always keep your hand on the door lock. I kept driving, my heart racing, my mind in chaos. My hands shook on the steering wheel, eyes darting constantly to the rearview mirror, afraid of seeing the silhouette of a stranger following me. Snow continued to fall thickly, making the road slippery, and every time the tires skidded over the snow, it felt like my heartbeat skipped a beat. I called the police, but the line was busy, the ringtone dragging on long enough that I nearly wanted to throw the phone out the window. I tried to focus on driving, reminding myself that it was over, that the man had just stood there, unable to do anything to me. But my instinct screamed that he was not that simple. I remembered his eyes, cold, as if trying to see straight through my mind. They haunted me so deeply that I felt every heartbeat, every breath, every small movement of mine being watched. I turned into a narrow road, trying to escape the empty neighborhood. But panic made me drive slowly, afraid to accelerate, afraid of skidding on the snow. Every stretch, the headlights cast long, dancing shadows of trees on the snow, making me imagine grotesque shapes, as if the abandoned house and that man were following behind, ready to appear at any moment. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Just get to a place with people. Just get to my car. Everything will be normal again. But the more I thought, the more the panic grew. I knew that if something went wrong, if the car slipped or stopped in the empty street, the consequences could be dire. About 200 meters from the driveway, I suddenly saw a figure lurking from a small side road I had just passed. My heart jumped. I squinted, trying to see clearly, but only a dark shape peeked out, then vanished behind the thick snow. A chill ran down my spine. I realized that the man was no longer standing still. He had started moving, following me, tracking my every step. Panic erupted. I pressed the gas harder, trying to speed toward the main road, hoping streetlights and passing cars would give me a sense of safety. But everything remained silent, only the sound of snow under the tires, the wind whistling, and my own heartbeat. I told myself, stay calm, plan your route, don't lose control. Then what I feared most happened. As I was about to turn onto the main road, an arm emerged from the darkness, swinging toward me as if to block my path. I screamed, pulled back a step, and suddenly felt my entire body go rigid. He stepped out of the shadows, moving straight toward me, his voice low and hoarse. Stop! Follow me! My heart nearly stopped. The words came out clearly, but there was something strange about them, as if they didn't come from the man, but from the very atmosphere around us. The snow still fell lightly, the wind still blew, but everything else seemed frozen. I backed up, trying to turn around, but the tires skidded on the snow, creating a piercing squeal. I pressed the gas, lunging forward, but my mind felt nearly paralyzed. Each press of the pedal made my palms tremble. Every second stretched like centuries. Survival instinct surged. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and drove straight. Snow sprayed, coating the windshield in a misty blur, making it nearly impossible to see the road. But I could still sense him approaching, his steps faster, more deliberate. Each step he took on the snow made a heavy crunch, echoing through the empty space, like a drumbeat warning me, run or die. I swerved, trying to put distance between us, but the feeling that he could appear anywhere around me made it impossible to breathe normally. My heart pounded, lungs burning, hands gripping the wheel tight. Every sense felt heightened. The snow under the tires, the wind whistling through the cracks, strange sounds in the distance. I noted everything, as if every detail could mean life or death. Suddenly, he raised his hand, leaned forward, and stepped quickly toward me, his voice low but commanding. Don't run! Follow me! The panic peaked. I realized that if I stopped, I would have no chance to escape. Survival instinct forced me to push forward, trying to leave the empty neighborhood. The car skidded on the snow, but luckily, I kept balance and sped toward the main road. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I saw him still standing there, eyes locked on me, not blinking. My heart felt like it would explode. I called the police again, hands trembling. My voice shook uncontrollably as I spoke, repeating the address, hoping they understood the urgency. Just as I finished speaking, I heard sirens, realizing they were close, giving me the only chance to escape this nightmare. I drove onto the main road, feeling every house, every light, every sign of life as precious and luxurious as never before. Snow still fell thickly, wind still whistled, but every movement felt like escaping a space my instincts warned me would trap me forever if I lingered. Finally, I saw the flashing lights of a police car in the distance. I honked. barreling toward it, feeling every cell in my body rejoice at the sight of rescue. When the police car stopped across the road, I jumped out, shaking, hands still clutching the bag. They got out, looked at me, immediately recognizing the emergency. I could only say, "The man in the abandoned house? I almost." The police nodded, but the image of the man still haunted me. I recounted the entire experience, his eyes, his stance, his words, the way he suddenly reached out, everything. They listened, took notes, but could not explain his behavior. The house was still abandoned, uninhabited. No one knew who he was, why he appeared, or what he intended. Only that I had been lucky to escape a nightmare that even imagination could barely create. After that night, every time I delivered to dark houses, I was exponentially more cautious. The panic, the haunting memory, and the sudden appearance of the man in the snowy night became an indelible memory, engraved deep in my mind. After escaping the driveway and speeding onto the main road, my heart was still pounding like a drum, my breath ragged, my whole body trembling. Yet, deep down, a part of me remained haunted by the man's cold gaze. I tried to calm myself, reminding myself that I had escaped the dangerous situation, that he couldn't keep up with me on the main road, that I still had a chance. But just a few minutes later, as I pulled over to the side to check the map on my phone, a chill ran through me. The reflection in the rearview mirror revealed a figure standing directly behind me on the road. My heart seemed to stop. He had moved faster than I thought, and now he appeared directly in the middle of the snow, silent but radiating immense pressure. I pressed the gas, trying to drive away, but my legs shook uncontrollably. Panic exploded fully. I realized there was no way back. Confrontation was inevitable. Survival instinct surged, all rational thought vanished, leaving only one goal: survival. He stepped forward, each step deliberate, the sound echoing on the snow. I stopped the car, hands trembling on the wheel, eyes fixed on him. Every detail of his body, from the cold stare, the resolute posture, to the way he breathed, made me feel as if every movement was calculated. I realized he was not a random stranger, but someone who had been watching, preparing for this moment of confrontation. I opened the car door, torn between fleeing and knowing that with the thick snow and darkness, I wouldn't escape if he charged. He approached, voice low, hoarse and cold, echoing in the silent space. "Follow me." The words were not an ordinary command. They carried authority, and something more terrifying, as if he knew all my thoughts, knew what I intended to do, knew how terrified I was. My heart nearly stopped, my whole body shaking, but I had to respond. I stepped back, holding the delivery bag like a shield, eyes locked on him, trying to create distance. He continued advancing, steps heavy and confident, saying nothing. I began to realize that all chances for negotiation or persuasion had vanished. This was a life or death confrontation, where every movement, every breath could determine survival. He stopped a few steps in front of me, smiling faintly, but the smile was not warm. It was full of malice. The light from the car reflected off his face, highlighting the fatigue, tension, and power within him. I could feel the latent strength in his body, the coldness honed to precision, leaving me nearly immobile. My heart pounded so hard I felt each vein throb in my chest. I had to think, act quickly, but every plan in my mind was erased. I had only one instinct left: run, survive, escape him. I held the bag out in front of me, hoping to create distance, hoping he would care only for the package. But he did not move. Instead, he stepped closer, eyes locked on every detail of my body. With each step closer, I felt a cold breath sweep across my face, like wind piercing through bone. I stepped back, slipping on the snow, feet hitting hard ice, nearly falling. He smiled faintly, smirking, saying nothing. The air around thickened, pressing me down, trying to separate me from reality. I took a deep breath, struggling to stay calm, but my body shook so violently I could barely control my movements. Then he raised his hand, slightly leaning forward, eyes still fixed on me, voice hoarse and thick. "Follow me, or there will be no more chances." I realized this was no longer a choice. If I didn't act, he would gain the upper hand. A thought flashed. I had to run, no matter the danger. I startled, deciding to dash to the car, unlock it, open the door, and jump in. My feet slipped on the snow, but fortunately, I did not fall. I started the engine, pressed the gas, and sped off like a storm. He stood there, watching, neither running nor hurrying. but his eyes, full of authority and power, followed me inch by inch, making me feel as if he could reach me even from dozens of meters away. As I left the driveway, I glanced back one last time. He still stood there, silent, not uttering a word, but his entire body and gaze carried a warning. Never forget him, and never return here. My heart continued to pound as I drove out of the neighborhood. The police had arrived, and I recounted the entire incident. His eyes, his voice, the way he moved, the eerie silence. They listened, took notes, but admitted they could not explain his behavior. The abandoned house, the red notice, and that man remained an unsolved mystery. But at least I knew I had survived. And even now, every time I think about that moment of confrontation, my heart still races, my sweat chills my spine, and the image of the man standing in the snow, silent, eyes fixed on my every step, continues to haunt me. My heart was still pounding as I had just sped out of the driveway, but I knew I hadn't truly escaped danger. The feeling of being watched still clung to my mind, like a cold hand gripping my throat. I looked into the rearview mirror, straining my eyes against the darkness, but I didn't see him. Perhaps he was standing still in the snow, waiting for me to leave. But my instincts warned me he could appear at any moment. I tried to take a deep breath, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The snow fell thickly, covering the narrow road in white, and every wheel slipping on the ice made me flinch. I knew that just one slight skid, one moment of distraction, could end everything here. But the survival instinct dominated my entire body. I had to run, had to survive, no stopping, no looking back. I decided not to take the shorter route to the center, but to turn onto a longer road, one with more lights and houses. Each house, each light was a psychological anchor, a temporary sense of safety, even knowing the distance was still enough that the man could not be seen if he was following me. While driving, I continuously checked the rearview mirror, eyes almost reaching into the darkness to detect any movement. Every shadow, every glint of light reflecting off the snow made me flinch. I knew adrenaline was pumping strongly, but it also helped me focus, react faster, and keep my limbs from trembling too much. As the car sped along a long stretch, I saw ahead a weak light, a police car's headlights. I honked, pressed the gas, rushing straight toward it, hoping they would recognize the emergency. When the police car stopped to block the road, I jumped out, trembling, urgently explaining, The man, the abandoned house, he almost chased me." The police immediately reacted, stepping out, looking around, and asking me for details. I recounted the entire ordeal. His cold gaze, the way he moved, his thick, hoarse voice, the command, "Follow me," every eerie motion. They took notes, tried to reassure me, but also admitted that the abandoned house, the strange man, everything was a mystery. After taking in the information, they let me sit in the police car, hands still shaking, heart still racing. A sense of relief but still tense crept into every muscle. I looked back at the road I had just traveled, the image of the driveway, the dark house, and the man standing in the snow still haunting me. Every detail seemed etched into my mind, impossible to erase. The police then immediately went to inspect the house, but found nothing unusual. No signs of habitation, no one living there, only snow covering everything, and the red notice still taped to the door. They explained that many abandoned houses in the area could attract curious strangers or criminals, but no one could explain why that man appeared, why he was following me, or what he intended. I stayed in the police car, trying to breathe normally, hands still gripping the delivery bag. My mind was tense and exhausted, my body trembling from head to toe. I couldn't believe I had escaped this vivid nightmare. Every detail I had experienced, the eyes, the voice, the footsteps, the snow, still seemed imprinted on my mind. When the police left to patrol the area, I began driving home, the sense of safety gradually returning, but still alert with every step. Every lit house, every light, every sign of life became a precious psychological support. I knew that luck was the only reason I wasn't caught, not attacked, and able to tell this story. Returning to my room, I opened the door, dropped my body onto the chair, feeling as if I had released all accumulated energy. But my mind remained uneasy. The image of the man standing in the snow, his cold gaze, and the command, "Follow me," still haunted me, like a permanent warning. I knew that from now on, every time I drove for deliveries at night, I could never look at abandoned houses the same way again. That night, lying in bed, hands still shaking, heart still racing, I told myself, I'm lucky, truly lucky. But a part of me knew that the memory of that man, the abandoned house, and the feeling of being watched would never leave. It was etched not only into memory, but also into survival instinct, making me more alert than ever. The next day, I still went to work as an Uber Eats driver, but any delivery to dark houses with no lights made me tremble. I learned to look carefully before leaving the car, to check my surroundings, and always keep my hand on the lock. Every trip, I reminded myself, always be vigilant, never be careless. The story of the strange man and the abandoned house became a persistent reminder. Sometimes danger doesn't come from crowded places, but from silence, from darkness, from things the mind cannot explain. And I, having been lucky enough to escape, still carry that memory as a lesson I will never forget. After that night of panic, I was still trembling whenever I recalled everything that had happened. The man in the abandoned house, his cold eyes, his thick, hoarse voice, all were etched deep into my memory, like a psychological scar that would never fade. I knew that luck was the only reason I escaped that direct threat, but luck does not always appear. And from that night on, I clearly felt that vigilance is never excessive, especially when driving at night on deserted roads toward dark houses. The next day, I still worked for Uber Eats, but every order leading to dark houses or empty neighborhoods made my heart race and my hands shake. I learned to observe every detail around me before stepping out of the car, whether the windows had light, whether there were signs of life, and most importantly, to pay attention to every shadow, every strange movement on the street. I realized that this mental preparation was not from irrational fear, but the only way to survive. The police went to inspect the abandoned house after I called. They noted that the house was uninhabited, the red notice still stuck on the door, and there was no sign suggesting it was being used for any legitimate purpose. They also confirmed that many abandoned houses in the area could attract curious people or criminals, but that a stranger appearing in the middle of a snowy night stalking and acting threateningly was extremely rare. Even the police admitted they could not explain his behavior. I returned to my apartment, feeling both relieved and tense. Every movement, every sound around me made me alert. I spent the entire evening thinking, analyzing every moment. His eyes, the way he moved closer, the words, "Follow me," and that heavy silence. I realized that silence was more terrifying than any threat because it left a void in my mind where imagination could run wild and paint the worst possibilities. In the weeks that followed, I tried to avoid delivering to deserted areas or dark houses. But sometimes work forced me to take night orders, and each time the fear returned. I learned to listen to the crunch of snow under the tires, the howling wind, any strange sounds nearby, and always kept my hand on the car door lock. Those seemingly simple survival skills became an inseparable part of every delivery. Strangely, whenever I looked back at the map, the road leading to that abandoned house still appeared vividly in my mind, like a psychological stain that could never be erased. I didn't know who that man was, where he lived, or why he appeared that night. I never sought the answer, knowing that digging deeper would only make the memory more vivid and the fear harder to escape. Gradually, that story became a costly lesson in vigilance and intuition. I learned to trust my instincts. If something feels wrong, retreat, find safety. Never underestimate danger. Sometimes luck won't show up, and mental preparedness is the only way to survive. A few months later, I heard from the police that the abandoned house remained empty, with no signs of life. They had received no further reports about the strange man appearing in the area. The question of why he appeared, what his purpose was, and whether he had followed others remained unanswered. This made me feel that what happened that night was an encounter almost beyond explanation, a fleeting moment between reality and nightmare. Since that night, I've changed how I view night deliveries. I no longer see it as a simple side job to earn extra money during vacation. Every trip now demands alertness, caution, and mental readiness. I keep my eyes on every detail: the light in the house, shadows, how the doors open or close, and even the notices or unusual signs. This makes the work more exhausting sometimes, but I know it saves my life. I also realized that the memory of the man and the abandoned house is not just a personal haunting, but a reminder about the world around me. Danger doesn't always come from crowds or obvious strangers, but from silence, from the darkness, from things reason cannot explain. That story keeps me cautious, vigilant, and sometimes makes me feel that intuition and survival instinct are the most valuable things. Years later, whenever I drive at night, the image of that abandoned house and the man still appears in my mind. I'm no longer as frightened as before, but the sense of vigilance remains, like an invisible companion whispering, "Don't be careless. Don't underestimate danger." I've learned to live with the memory, to use it to protect myself, and to cherish the luck that once saved me from a living nightmare. And no matter how many years pass, whenever snow falls thick at night, whenever I see dark houses, the image of the man standing in the snow, his cold eyes, and the words, "Follow me," still haunt me, reminding me that life is not only what we see, but also what we feel, the hidden dangers reason cannot explain, and that survival instinct is the only thing that can lead us out of that darkness. This story may not be over yet. If you have a mystery, a fear, or a strange encounter, send it to Dark Whispers Audio. And don't forget to subscribe, because next time, it might be your story we whisper.